Welcome to Sikhcast, brought to you by Sikh Research Institute, illuminating every path.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Jasleen Kaur, and I'm a trans creator on the Granth Sahib project. We're excited to announce the release of Bhagat Ramanand's Bani, which is set in the musical mode or rag of Basant. There's a few things to know about Bhagat Ramanand before we get into the actual composition, which is that he was originally a practitioner of one of the 6 Hindu philosophical schools of thought. He had many students. He had reached a very high level of mastery and teaching. And before this composition, he had a journey with his own mentor in a particular context and time, practicing Vedantic ideas and yogic ideas. And the reason that this composition is set in Basant could be that, as we know, Basant is the rag of changing seasons, freshness, and newness. We might associate it with some kind of like spring cleaning or a new thing taking root to allow for a new kind of blooming. And what we really see here is that Bhagat Ramanand is experiencing a kind of spring cleaning in his own way, clearing out of his previous practices and belief systems and learnings, and an allowing of some kind of new paradigm shift to take root, so that the questions that he used to have are no longer the questions that he's interested in, and the goals he used to have are no longer the goals he's interested in. And it is this Bhagat, this devoted one, who has experienced that paradigm shift, whose words are in the Guru Granth Sahib. I thought I'd start with the Raha line, just so that we know we can sort of situate ourselves in this paradigm shift. So Bhagat Ramanand says, "O people, where should one go? The heart home is filled with the color of bliss. My consciousness does not waver. My wandering mind has become crippled." So he's asking this rhetorical question of like, where should I go? Where can I go to dye my consciousness in the color of love? Where can I go to sort of stop my wandering mind from being able to wander? And the focus here is on the mind, because so much of his previous school of thought is about seeking particular knowledges and using particular techniques and disciplines to attain that knowledge. And it kind of becomes, for him at least, just like a fruitless pursuit of something to no end. It's not giving him anything past just the accumulation of intellect. He's not experiencing any kind of love beyond intellect, any kind of like internal shift that is intangible, that is rooted in connection with the one. And so it becomes that like these pursuits are no longer relevant to him. He's no longer taking part in pilgrimages and rituals and worshiping idols, because his paradigm has shifted. And the reason his paradigm has shifted is because the wisdom, the Guru, has shown him where the supreme being, IkOankar, really is. IkOankar is not in these idols, not in these pilgrimage sites, not in these cleansing baths. And he has now understood that to experience connection with IkOankar, we have to understand that IkOankar is within, that IkOankar can enter our minds through the guidance of the wisdom of the Guru. So again, this theme of paradigm shifting continues. And I think that something that really stuck out to me about this composition is that he's kind of moving beyond like the transactional nature of his previous sort of way of being and his previous goals and questions and practice. And the reason that I say that is because I think we could easily mistakenly read this as just being like relevant to those who are of those particular schools of thought. So maybe we're like, well, I'm reading this and I'm a Sikh, and that doesn't really, it's not really relevant to me because I'm not worshiping idols. I'm not taking part in these things. But I think the larger sort of underlying theme that I see speaking to all of us is a reflection on like whether or not the questions that we are asking are the right questions to ask, whether or not the goals we have in our own journeys are goals that will lead us to connection and satiation, or whether they will be frustrating to us and sort of endless and cause us to continue questioning and wandering. And that's a harder thing, I think, to reflect on, because we can be Sikhs and also be engaging in transactional spirituality. We can be Sikhs and also be engaging in sort of public performances of spirituality and trying to one-up one another with some kind of accumulation of knowledge that never sort of ends. We can do that, and we do. So this isn't just Bhagat Ramanand talking to other people from his particular school of thought. I think this is something that we can all take really valuable insights from. And at the end, he refers to IkOankar as Swami. And I think that's really striking because Swami is something that can be interpreted as like master or owner, but it's not like it's not a transactional or a positional relationship. It is one that's like deeply intimate, because it is an ownership of the devotee who submits themselves lovingly in reverence to that one. And this intimate and personal relationship with the one is what he's been looking for. And it's through this paradigm shift that he's finally able to experience it. And I think that there's other things that are important to know about Bhagat Ramanand's life. Like, I think it's important to know that he benefited from his caste position. He was a Brahmin. He benefited from his position as an influential teacher and guide. He benefited from these kinds of transactional spirituality sort of systems that people make, where people are motivated by fear and they're told they have to go to this place or do this ritual or speak to this person in order to sort of absolve themselves of whatever spiritual baggage they think they have. He easily could have just stayed comfy in that position of influence and power. And instead, he allowed himself to be uncomfortable for a second or a while and have his paradigm shift and have his world sort of upended in front of his own eyes, and to take that seriously. And we see that in the life that he lives after that paradigm shift, in understanding the importance of experiential knowledge and devoted connection to the one. We see that out of the 13 students he has, 2 of them are women, and then 7 out of the 11 men who are his disciples and sort of fellow travelers are included in the Guru Granth Sahib and come from many of the kind of so-called low caste backgrounds. So Bhagat Ramanand didn't just transform internally or sort of in principle, but also in his externalization of those principles, in his behavior. He became revolutionary. He abandoned previous schools of thought and norms that really benefited him. I can't stress that enough. When he finally kind of allowed for his paradigm to shift in a way that sort of caused him to lose a lot of that power and influence, he gained something else. Things really changed for him. So I guess my reflective sort of questions, and there are many this time around, are what are my current lifestyles and practices? What are my anxieties? What are my pursuits? And am I willing to really reflect on them in a critical way? And what am I willing to let go of once I've done that reflection? What is it that I'm dedicating myself to? And is it bearing the fruit that I seek? And am I willing to interrogate the very systems that serve me? I think that's a really hard one. Can I leave the safety and sort of certainty in a way of fear-based transactional systems of progression and pursuit for something less tangible and less logical and less intellectual? Can I give myself over and surrender to the Swami who lives within, whose color I seek to be dyed in? And is this wisdom of the Guru chiseling me to become a devoted one, the same way that it chiseled Bhagat Ramanand? So these are things to think about. I hope that you spend some time with this Sabad and with the word meanings and the footnotes and the commentary, as always, as you seek to ask these harder questions of yourself. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Read the translations and commentaries at gurugranthsahib.io.
You are listening to Sikhcast by Sikh Research Institute, illuminating every path.